Hey, Seekers, and welcome back. I'm your host, Julienne Irons, and today we're continuing our love and relationship theme. So when we think about relationships, we don't always think about money as part of the conversation. It feels separate, practical, something we'll deal with later. But what becomes really clear in this episode is that money is never just about money. It's about safety, identity, and the stories we learned growing up that quietly shape how we show up in love. In this conversation with Katy Chen Mazarra, we get into how our childhood experiences around money follow us into our relationships, how avoidance creates distance, and why so many couples aren't actually fighting about money. They're reacting to what money represents in their bodies. And for my single folks, don't worry, I got you, because we also talk about something that really hit home for me as someone who's single, which is how our relationship with money can influence who we choose, what we tolerate, and even whether we allow ourselves to be seen in a relationship at all. This is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hanged Woman, where perspective is power. Let's get into it. So let me guess. You're running a business, showing up, doing all the things, and still second-guessing your next move. That's usually not a sign you need more effort. It's a sign you need clarity. At 3 of Cups Healing, we offer energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy for your small business. We combine tarot insight, competitive research, and real-world strategy to help you understand what makes you stand out, how to communicate it clearly, and what your next move should actually be. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at 3ofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's 3ofcupshealing.com. All right, let's get into the episode. All right, juicy. Let's get into it because I freaking love you, Katy. Like you sort of like shifted the narrative for me during the pandemic with your program, Financial Freedom for Creatives. And that sort of got me on the journey of looking at my creative life in a different way. So I wasn't just like focused on one thing, just like TV and film. It opened me up to so many different things. And being in your program actually gave me the courage to start my audiobook narration career. And now like that's like thriving. And you just opened me up to the possibility of what is possible for me as a creative. And I'm so grateful for you for that. And I'm so happy that you're here with me today.
Oh, thank you. I'm receiving all of that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Katy, for people that aren't familiar with you and your work, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to the work that you do?
Yeah, so I am a trauma-informed financial wellness coach, and I mostly work with creative freelancers and entrepreneurs. And the reason I work with mostly creative freelancers and entrepreneurs is because I was one. I was a TV producer for over 15 years. And during that time, I had to learn how to manage the ups and downs of the entertainment industry, as well as the ups and downs of like a freelance career, because your income isn't as consistent. And so after my first TV show ended, I was like, how do people do this? Like, how do people pay down debts or think about retirement or save for the future, save for a house when they don't even know if you're going to be working in a month or 2 months or 3 months, right? So I went on a whole journey to figure it out for myself first and read all the books, but there weren't a lot of books that were focused on freelancers. Most of the books were talking about if you have a 9 to 5 job with a 401k and, a a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? And what to do then. So I kind of had to figure it out for myself. And then once I started to figure it out, a lot of my friends and colleagues were asking me how I did it. And when I was thinking about getting out of TV, a few of my friends said, "You're really good with your money and you don't seem to be worried about any of it, even when you're not working. Like, how do you do that? And I was like, oh, there's something here. And so I went back to school and went to UC Berkeley and got a financial planning certification. But then realized it's not just about that, right? Like, we can all read books and if it was just about the knowledge and knowing those things, then we would all be really great with money because we can just read a book like Personal Finance for Dummies, right? However, what I realized is that it's also connected to our childhood stories. It's connected to the way our parents, raised us growing up. And then also, something that's a lot more personal to me is that I've known 3 women in my life who stayed in abusive relationships because they lacked money. They had young children to take care of, and so they really felt stuck in their situation because they didn't work outside the home. And so they felt like they had to stay in that abusive situation just to put a roof over their heads and their children's heads, right? So my mission is to help people to make decisions not based on money. I want people to make decisions based on their core values and the dreams that they have for themselves. And, if they have kids to help their children to have bigger dreams as well. And so I find that, money can be deeply emotional, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, today. Then I went back and got a trauma informed coaching certification and went through a very rigorous program where, I had to like confront a lot of my own stuff, and to be able to help other people to actually, release some of their stories and their traumas. Yeah.
When did you actually realize that money and romantic relationships weren't actually separate things?
Ever since I was a child, because my parents fought about money every single day. And they were so opposite about money. And I noticed that like my dad, he grew up with a mom that was very tight with her money and who would like kind of be paranoid about it. Like she thought people were out to get her and to steal her money and all of those things. And so he ended up being very fearful. So he was like also very tight and cheap with his money. I mean, this is not like bashing him because he actually thinks like, like he thinks it's funny that he's so cheap. Like he used to say when I was a TV producer, he's like, you should make a show called My Cheap Dad, just so I could tell all my friends that that's me. you know but because of those fears, he was very, very tight with his money and always stressed out. Like he would, every single year around tax time, he would be at the kitchen table just doing his taxes until midnight. And if you even went close to him, he would like bite your head off because that's how stressed out he was about it. And then my mom was like sort of the opposite. She was like she's very free spirited and she spent a lot of money and almost overspend too, because she would like go out and buy things and then hide it. She would put things into the trunk of her car and then like when my dad went to work, she would pull it out and wash it and put it in her closet and pretend that she'd always had it. So there was that dichotomy all the time, between that cheapness and tightness and then the like free spirited and overspending, right? And so I always had this like feeling like, oh, money is a thing, right? Money is an emotional thing. Money is like something that can create conflicts or whatever. And so for me, growing up that way, I actually didn't want anything to do with money for a long time. So it wasn't that I couldn't make money, but every time I made money, it went out, like later when babysat or, had my first jobs. And then even after college, with my first jobs in my 20s, anytime money came in, it went out, mainly because my mind and body wanted to reject money all the time.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that in my life as well. How do you see romantic relationships and money actually connecting together?
Well, it doesn't really connect together, and that's probably part of the problem, which is that as individuals, come into a relationship with our own stuff, with our own money stories, with the way we grew up in our childhoods. Like me, growing up the way I just told you about, and then let's say it's my husband coming into this relationship and the way he grew up with money, right? And in so many ways, it's like, even though I'm a money coach, right, a financial wellness coach, he's actually more abundant minded than I am because of the way he grew up. There wasn't a lot of like fighting about money in his household. His parents were not wealthy. They were teachers, right? Like they were teachers and then educators, but they lived a really harmonious middle class lifestyle, and he never felt like he needed or wanted anything. And so because of that, he naturally is much more abundant minded than I am. So we come into this relationship with that, right? And so that can create conflict. Luckily it doesn't. I mean, I don't think it's luck because I think we work at it. But we never fight about money. We fight about other stuff, but we don't fight about money. However, there are times when I've noticed that, right? I'll notice, like, if I get a parking ticket, for example, it kind of freaks me out. I'm
Mm,
like, oh, I don't want to spend money on something that I don't feel like I deserved, right? Or
right,
that
right.
I didn't choose to spend money on. And that sort of scarcity kind of pops up for me, right? Whereas then he'll say, like, oh, did you have a good time? Yes, I had a great
Mm,
time. Well, then just think about it as money well spent for the time that you had with your friends or whatever, when you got that ticket.
yeah.
So it's really interesting, right? And that's why I think that people sometimes fight about money, and it's the number one reason couples get divorced over it, is because we're coming to the table with our own individual stuff, the way we
Mm,
grew up, our stories, and how our parents handled things. And if we haven't taken the time to work through those things,
mhm.
then it can create conflict, because it's like, well, this is how I've always done it, or this is how my parents have always done it, right? And now it's clashing against the other person's values and the way they were brought up.
So, like, there's this personal issue when it comes to money, and then there's this relational issue when it comes to money. How do those layers start to really interact when people come together?
It's bringing those two beliefs together, right? And so it can either clash against each other, right? Like if you don't really truly understand how the other person was brought up, then you can actually clash against it, right? I tell couples that I work with, like, start with just talking about how you grew up. What were things like money wise, right? Like, what are some of the memories that you have? Because, as children, we don't really understand money, right? It's not a concept that's like feels real to any of us as children. And so what we absorb and understand about money is the emotions that people have around it, right? Like my dad being super stressed out, that's the emotion that I got from it, from that, or my mom overspending, right? And whatever emotions that come from that. And so I think that, you have to start off talking about, okay, well, how did you grow up? What did things look like in your household around finances? Who took care of the finances in your household? And then any other stories, because it may not even have anything to do with your parents. Sometimes it's like, I've seen clients who went to like maybe a private school where a lot of children were wealthy, right? But they may not have been as wealthy. Their families may not have been as wealthy. And so that may affect how they see things. And they're like, oh, I'm not as worthy, right? Like that might be the story that they get into their mind and body. And then they operate from that place when they start to, make money. And then it affects your relationship, because our relationships are mirrors of a lot of the things that we haven't worked through yet.
Right,
And that's
yeah,
why people fight, right? Like,
right.
because it's holding up a mirror to the things that you haven't quite worked through.
So, what are some of the money patterns that you see that actually might create distance between partners, even if they don't seem dramatic at first?
That's such a good question. I think a lot of people have heard of like love languages. There's a couple of different ways to look at it. So instead of love languages, I want to take a look at like the 5 personality patterns and attachment styles, right? Okay, so there are 5 personality patterns. It's aggressive, avoidant or leaving, merging, enduring, and rigid. And then there are these attachment styles as well. And then the attachment styles are also secure, anxious or preoccupied, dismissive or avoidant, and disorganized. So, like, what do you think? What do you think are the personality types or the attachment styles that create this conflict?
Mm, you know, it's so interesting. This is
Mhm.
a because like I haven't been in a relationship in like 15 years.
Okay.
So I'm like, I have to I have to like go back in my head and be like, what do I think? What was it for personally for me?
Mm,
And I think that in the relationships that I've been in, even though I was so much younger then, it was definitely like avoidance, like
yes.
not looking at it.
Yes. That's
That was
it.
probably my number one thing.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
The avoidant. I mean, it's interesting that both the 5 personality patterns as well as the attachment styles both have this avoidant part in there, right?
Yeah.
And so the avoidance is the number one thing that creates conflict and things grow because you're avoiding it, right? You don't look at it. So then the problems get bigger and bigger. And then when the problems get bigger and bigger, they end up creating more conflict, more fighting, even divorce, right? It's like when I was in university, there was I think the RA said something like, talk about stuff like between roommates, right? They're like, talk
Hmm.
about stuff when things come up. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting over a sock on the floor. And then you're going to be like, why were we even fighting over that? Right. And it's
Right.
the same thing in a relationship. If you don't bring up something and actually talk through it when it comes up, then it just grows and becomes bigger and bigger. And so it's absolutely the avoidant, leaving type of personality or the patterns that show up that actually creates the most conflict and the most drama and the most all of those things later on.
When couples actually argue about money, what is really truly happening under the surface for them? Like
Yeah.
what's going on? What is that about?
Yes. Well, money is actually tied into our sense of safety and security for some reason. I mean, I think it's because, we have to use money to pay for our rent and for a lot of the necessities, right? Like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the foundation needs to be, the roof over your head, right? And food and the air that we're breathing and water. So we need money to actually pay for the roof over our head.
Right.
And even food, right? Groceries and those kinds of things. So we get it wrong, right? Like our minds and bodies actually get it wrong that we tie our finances to those things, to our sense of safety and security because of that, because we have to
Ah,
pay for our necessities, our like foundational pieces, right? Our
mhm.
needs with money. And so, because of that, then we end up arguing if we don't feel safe and secure, right? Anytime we don't
Right.
feel safe and secure, it may not even be about money. But whenever we don't feel safe or secure, we're going to end up fighting about something or feeling irritated about it, even if it's not truly like a fight, but we can still feel a little bit like, why is this rubbing up against me? This feels irritating to me or
Mhm.
frustrating to me because all of a sudden I'm like, I don't feel safe in the world or I feel very insecure about something.
Yeah, I mean even just like as a single gal, living on her own, doing her own thing.
Yes.
Like I feel that too. Like when I don't feel safe and secure, I
Yeah.
get irritated, I get scared, and that makes me like fear spiral. So I can only
Mm-hmm.
imagine you put another person in that dynamic and whew, yeah.
Yes.
that would cause some arguments there.
Yeah.
That takes us back to like not being avoidant about it. So like if I'm in a situation where I'm not feeling safe and secure because of my finances, I shouldn't avoid talking about it. It's like, no, let me talk about this with my partner so
Mhm.
that I can release this from myself so that I can like find safety and security.
Yes, absolutely. It's the difference between, like, let's say you don't know exactly what somebody is thinking or believing, right? But you feel their energy, you feel like they're being distant or something. But if you keep avoiding it, it just kind of grows. Okay. But if you actually say, hey, I feel a little distant from you right now. Like, is there anything going on? Are you mad at me? Blah, blah, blah. And then the other person can respond, and then you can start to calm down your mind about telling yourself the worst case scenario stories.
Yeah, yeah, calm your nervous system down. That like brings me to my next question too. At what point does money stop being about just numbers and start being about feeling safe, feeling valued, or in control in the relationship?
I think it's never about numbers.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Hmm.
why, when I did go back to school and get that financial planning certification, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't, everything there is to money. I think it really is about our stories, our emotions around it, our sense of safety and security, and really helping ourselves to understand what we're bringing to the table, what we're bringing to the relationship in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. That's sort of a relationship thing too, is like, if you are so unsure of yourself, if you go into that relationship with that, then you can either get lost into the other person's world and their beliefs and the way they want to do things, and then at some point you're like, where am I in all of this, right?
Hmm.
Or if you're so unsure of yourself, or if you're, very insecure about things and you go into this relationship, you could also end up trying to control everything, trying to like get control over something because of your insecurities, right? And
Yeah.
then that's also going to push the other person away too, right? So there are lots of things that when we come to a relationship that we've got to understand ourselves first, right?
Mm.
It is a very personal journey first, more than anything, right? And I think that in relationships, it needs to start with that anyway, no matter what you're doing, no matter if we're talking about money or if we're
Mhm.
talking about anything else in a relationship. In order to have like a really healthy, vital relationship, you have to understand yourself first.
Yeah.
Right. And really come to the table with a lot of growth and a lot
Mm.
of, understanding of like, what do you want? Where are you with things? Where are you going to? Right.
Yeah.
Because the best relationships are the ones that really can handle growth.
Mm.
Right. Like I've gone to so many retreats. And then when I come back from a retreat, a lot of times what I've seen with other women and other people that I've gone to this retreat with, they're like, oh, now my partner doesn't understand, right? My partner
Mm.
doesn't understand me. I don't, relate to them. And then they end up divorcing, right? They end up separating because one person is on this trajectory of growth while the other person is staying sort of stagnant,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't cultivate the healthiest relationship. The ones that last are the ones where it's like, okay, both people are sort of growing together, right? You're
Yeah.
you're growing individually, but you're also growing together, and you're also able to hold space for the other person's growth at all times.
Mm. Mm, I love that. Yeah. This also reminds me of like an old relationship where we weren't growing together in a number of different reasons. And that was part of the reason why I left. And like when I left, he said, "But I haven't changed since you met me." And I'm like, "That's exactly why I have
That's
to leave. Like it's 5 years later and you're still the same person.
right,
Like you haven't
exactly.
just not evolved."
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
there was a past relationship that I had where I was engaged to this person, and before we were going to get married, I was like, okay, I didn't want to go into our marriage with a lot of debt. And
Mm.
so I had talked to him about, helping him out. I said, I will pay for rent, and then later I bought a place, and so I'll pay for the mortgage, and you just concentrate on paying down your debts. And about a year later, I was like, okay, so where are you on the debts, and what are we doing here? Right.
Right.
And he very reluctantly showed me all of his finances, and instead of paying down any of the debt, he tripled it.
Oh,
Yeah, he went from around 30,000 to about 90,000. And I was like, I felt the same way if, if he had come home and said, I cheated on you with someone, that felt exactly the same way to me. It was betrayal. And so I call it financial infidelity, right? Because,
mm,
for a whole year, I was taking care of the roof over his head.
yeah.
And then there was no communication. He never told me that this was an issue, that he was, not paying down the debts. And then I had to find out a year later, right? And that was sort of the beginning of the end.
Would you call it financial infidelity?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I felt that in my chest.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 Hmm. Let's just like talk about that because it feels like he also just avoided the topic of money,
Hmm.
right? So when somebody does that, when somebody shuts down, when they avoid the topic or they get defensive around finances, what is actually happening in their body when they do that?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question. And I think that, for everybody, it's probably pretty individualistic.
Hmm.
However, I think what's happening in our bodies is that we're kind of going into our child selves, right? Our inner child
Yeah.
selves. And so, you may feel like, your stomach might be tight, your chest might be tight, your throat might be a little bit drier and tighter in those moments. Our child self sometimes comes out and takes over,
Yeah.
right? Like our adult selves might say, yes, I totally want to pay down my debts, right? And then our child selves, for some reason or another, may be like kicking and screaming and saying, no, because when I was a kid, I never got to do the things that I wanted to do. And now it feels like a big responsibility, and that doesn't feel good to me. So I'm going to just act out and rebel against that.
Yeah.
And, or something else, right? Or like, somebody, I've seen people who are like, holding on to their money, like, oh, I gotta keep saving, and I can't spend any of that money, right? I can't touch
Hmm.
that money. And that may
Hmm.
be just because, okay, as a kid, you didn't feel safe and secure. So now it's like the child self is coming out and really trying to like hold on, right? And say, I'm gonna be okay if I just have, if I just keep my savings the way it is, right? And
Yeah.
never touch it. And so because of that, it's really challenging for our adult selves to actually create the habits we want to make. And so it
Mm.
really is working on that piece, right? Really letting our child selves know that it's okay, right? It's okay, and we've got it. Like we're older now, and we've really got things, but also letting the child self like have a little bit of a rebellion, have that temper tantrum for a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a baby, right? Like when you see those toddlers who are kicking and screaming, they don't kick and scream forever and ever. They don't do that for days and days. They do it for like, an hour maybe, right? At the most, or 2 hours at the most, maybe. Um, but if you're holding space, if you're holding that child, letting them do it, eventually they're going to calm down. Eventually they're going to feel safer in the world and feel safer in your arms. And
Yeah.
then you're able to move forward in the day.
Right.
However, the more that you resist and fight with the child, right? Then they keep going. Then they scream louder and they get even crazier, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing for ourselves, right? So it's really acknowledging that and having compassion and holding space for it and allowing ourselves to go into a bit of a temper tantrum for a bit. And
Mm.
then allowing that nervous system to calm down, that inner child to calm down, and saying, okay, now I can handle it, right? After doing
Yeah.
all of that.
How do couples do that together? Like, how do couples allow themselves to slow down and create safety together before they fix the financial issues?
Well, I have a guide that I'm going to share with your audience. And in that guide, I suggest like having these money dates, right? And when you're starting off with the money dates, you're not going to start off with, okay, so let's look at all the numbers and let's look at how much we spent last month, right? But instead, you're going to start off with something fun, right? Make it a true date, like light some candles, order some food in or make a beautiful dinner together or something, right? And have a fun beverage, whether it is with alcohol or not with alcohol, right? Like have a fun beverage and then start with some dream building, right? Because then you're creating a sense of safety and security. You're creating a place of fun and play and curiosity, right? Because those things are getting us out of that fight or flight brain into a more regulated place and a learning brain, right? So that we're open to the possibilities of what can happen. Right. So if we start off with that, then both parties can actually feel, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be playful. This is going to be, we're open and we're just, yeah, we're dream building and the reason we're talking about money isn't because we're trying to accuse each other of something or scrutinizing the bills, right? But instead, what we're doing is we are dream building and figuring out how to make our money work so that we can create those dreams, right? Like if we were like, we want to take a trip to Europe next year or something, right? Then we have this opportunity to talk about it and figure out how to do that, right? Or if we're going to buy a house in 5 years, right? Like how are we going to do that? So it becomes like a fun exercise rather than any kind of scrutiny.
Right. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that so much. Yeah, make it
Mhm.
fun. And that also allows your inner child to play
Yes.
as well together. It's like
Exactly.
your inner children are playing together.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
Yes,
That's
yes,
exciting.
letting your imagination go wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so let's talk about like the opposite side of play. Let's talk about shame and secrecy because it's something that I know happened in my parents' relationship. There's a lot of shame and secrecy when it came to money.
Mhm.
How does shame or secrecy around money start to erode trust over time?
Shame and secrecy will always erode trust, mostly because we don't trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's where it starts. Like, if I feel ashamed about something, I'm not going to talk about it, right? I'm not going to bring it up. So that means that I don't also trust myself. And so, because I don't trust myself, then how can my partner really trust me? Brene Brown is, probably one of the more well known researchers on shame, right? And then she talks about how shame likes to hide in dark corners. And so the more that we're not talking about it, the more that we suppress it, then it actually grows. That shame grows bigger and bigger until it kind of overwhelms us. Right. And so it is important that if something does feel shameful, that we bring it to the light, we say it out loud, we can actually admit it and talk through it and without judgment and with a lot of compassion and understanding. It's for ourselves and for our partners, right? And part of trust is having that compassion, giving each other the benefit of the doubt, but also giving yourself the benefit of the doubt, right? Because we're so good at being like hard on ourselves, right? Like if I trip, I'm always like, "Oh, I'm so clumsy," when that may not be true. It's just like, instead it's like, okay, if, it feels a little bit triggering or shameful, it's like, okay, where's that coming from? What is it trying to protect us from? And then we can start to have a lot of compassion, like, thank you for trying to protect me from XYZ. And then same thing, like understanding our partner, where that may be coming from, right? Like, oh, I hear you. I hear that this feels really challenging for you to bring up, right? And it feels really shameful in some ways. And just wanted to understand it a little bit more. Like, where do you think it comes from? Has there been a moment in your life, maybe perhaps in your childhood, where that started to happen, right? And and is triggering this shame? And then to say, oh, I understand it. I understand you. And then when you can get to that place, you actually deepen the relationship, right? When somebody can see you in those moments, like in your darkest moments, and the moments where you felt the most shame, they can see you without judging you. That creates such an unbreakable bond.
That feels like safety to me. Like if that's one of the things, like when I'm, as I'm looking for a partner, that's something that's so important to me that I can be in those like shameful, dark spaces and have a person receive me anyway,
Yes.
especially when it comes to money and my
Yes.
finances. Because, yeah, I'm a creative, so it's not always like perfect, you know?
Yes. Absolutely.
Ah, the dream of finding that man.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, I never thought it would be, but yeah, I'm living proof I've been married for 14 years now.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then we were together for a couple years before that, so, 15, 16 years now, and I feel like we're only just getting started sometimes. Like, I just feel like we grow in our love for each other, like all the time, every single moment, every single year. So I know it is
Oh,
possible, right?
I love that so
Yeah.
much. How
Yeah.
expansive. Yeah,
Yes.
very
Yes.
expansive.
Yeah. And it's mostly that. It's mostly like, yes, we can have so much compassion for, yeah, for our dark sides, our shadows, are the things that we do feel shame around.
Yeah.
And then that shame goes away. Like, it really does. When somebody can see you and have compassion for you and say, like, I see it and it's okay.
Because sometimes it just takes somebody that you trust to be like, I see you and it's okay for
Yeah.
you to be able to release that shame
Yes.
and let go of it.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Okay, Seekers, I think this is a really great place to take a break. We'll be right back with the episode. Grief doesn't move in a straight line, and it doesn't come with a clear path forward either. Seekers, if you've experienced loss, whether it's a loved one, a pet, miscarriage, or another life transition, Healing After Loss was created to support you through it in a real and grounded way. Led by trauma-informed intuitive energy healer Julienne Irons, this self-paced course gives you space to process your emotions, understand what you're moving through, and find your own path forward with tools, reflection, and optional life support along the way. And because you're listening to The Hanged Woman, you can receive 10% off with code The Hanged Woman. Remember joy again and learn more at threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. That's threeofcupshealing.com/HAL course. And the code for 10% off is The Hanged Woman. Hey, Seeker. So if your marketing feels unclear or inconsistent, it's usually not because you're doing it wrong. It's because it's not fully aligned yet. At Three of Cups Healing, we use energy and intuitive-based marketing strategy to help you get clear on your messaging, your audience, and how to show up in a way that actually works for you. That means less second-guessing, more direction, and a business that feels like it fits. So, Seeker, if you're ready to stop second-guessing and start moving with intention, book a free consultation at threeofcupshealing.com. Your vision, your magic. Let's make it real. Together. That's threeofcupshealing.com. All right, let's keep the perspective shift going.
All right, so since we're on the topic of being single, for those of us who are single and we're working on our self-worth, how does our relationship with money influence who we're attracted to or who we choose?
I see this over and over and over again. Like, I mean, yes, I work with people on their money stories. However, a lot of times when I'm working with someone, and especially if they're single, they will end up getting into a relationship, getting married, having kids, all of those things, right? And it's, those things all go together. Like I really believe that our financial life is just a direct reflection of our emotional life. And so it really does go together. I've also seen some people who are single who say, I don't even want to get into a relationship because of my financial situation, right? Because I have so much debt, or because, I have like $100,000 of student loans or something like that. No one's going to accept that, right? And so,
Hi, it's me. Hi,
okay.
hello. Hi.
um, and I'm here to say that it's one of those things where if they can't accept you, then that's not the person for you either, right? It's the same thing as if like you maybe somebody has a child, right? If you have a child from a previous relationship or whatever, and you're like afraid to date again or to, tell somebody that I have a child, right? Then that person is not for you because, for them to love you, they've got to love all of you, right? And so this is all part of that. My sister-in-law had a huge student loan, and my brother did not have any debt, and he had quite a bit of money saved up and investments and all of those things. And in the beginning, I had said, well, maybe you want to consider a prenuptial agreement or anything like that. And he was like, nope, I'm not doing that. And then he eventually just paid off her huge student loan. And so I know that, when I see that, it's like, okay, yeah, like love in so many ways should be bigger than the money situation. To really hold yourself back because of it, then you're not giving yourself the opportunities that could be meant for you.
That's so expansive and good to hear. It's like I'm not in that much debt, but I am a creative, and so like money sometimes it ebbs and it flows. Sometimes I'm like in a great financial space, and sometimes like oh, it's a little bit tougher. That's been the thing that's kind of been holding me back from really diving into a relationship. Is like who wants to be with somebody who's like loosey goosey like that, like not secure in her finances all the time. And so that is actually a really expansive story
Mhm.
for me. It did release something in me that like it is
Yeah.
possible to find a
Okay.
partner that doesn't just not worried about that stuff because maybe my man is rich.
Exactly.
Maybe he's got money.
Yes. Yep.
So, Katie, do you see patterns where people like overgive financially or tie their worth to what they earn or lean on financial security as a stand-in for emotional security?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is the main reason why you hear those studies that say like people lose their lottery winnings within 3 years. It's because of these things, right?
Mm.
Because of our patterns and our habits and the things that we grew up with. And it's our belief systems too, right? Like if you're somebody that believes you can only make money if you work really, really hard, which a lot of us grew up with. Then if you win the lottery and you didn't work hard for it, what are you going to start to do? You're going to start to overgive. Going to a restaurant and you're like, oh, well, I have so much money. I'm going to give this person, a 40% tip, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, a 50% tip. Or your natural instincts are going to kind of kick in, right? Those habits, if you haven't worked through the things that can stand in your way,
Mhm.
right? And it's not the fact that I want people to not be generous, right? However, is it coming really from a place of generosity, or is it just coming from a place of, I'm not enough unless I?
Ooh, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those are the places where I work with couples and work with people on is like, where are you coming from?
I feel that on so many levels because for me, giving and having like money to give to people, to give to my family, to give to my friends, makes me feel like I am worthy of being a part of this community.
Mm.
Like if I don't have it to give, then I'm not a worthy part of this
Mhm.
community and I will get kicked out of this community. I understand that now in this moment, I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing that.
Mhm. Right.
Like it just clicked for
Yeah.
me.
Where can you give from where, like, if you started to just take care of yourself, and if you really set yourself up first, right? Have enough in the emergency savings account, like whether it's like a 6 month account up to a year's worth of necessary expenses from that place. And then when there's extra on top of that, that's the place where you're giving from. Like, how would that feel in your body?
Mm, that would make me feel so much safer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those of us who are single, what is one shift that we can make in our relationship with money that would change how we show up in love?
I would start with your own sense of self-worth. Yeah. And it's tied into the things that we were just talking about. And I like to give this a little exercise that I give to my groups, is to start like a little self-worth jar and have a clear jar where you can see it every day and write a little something positive about yourself, right? Because we are so, good at being negative and beating ourselves up. It's like taking one little moment in the day and writing down something positive. And it can be anything. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, oh, my hair looked good today or whatever, like I liked my outfit or somebody gave me a compliment that meant something to me, right? Because how many times does somebody give you a compliment and then you're like, oh, that was cool. And then by the next day or even the next hour, you completely forgot about it. Right.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
is a good moment to like write those things down and put them in there. And it works like compounding interest, right? If we're talking about money, where the more that you practice this, the more it builds up. Okay. And then go back and read through those things. Like I had a client who, when she first read through her self-worth jar, the things that she wrote, she said, I didn't recognize who wrote those things.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like a little bit sad because it's like we're so
Yeah.
far removed from our higher selves sometimes that, yeah, like when we go back and look at those things, we're like, wow, that was me?
Yeah. Feels like a stranger.
Yes, this is just one, but it's a really cool little exercise to like start to cultivate that sense of self-worth.
How do you help couples move from fighting about money to actually talking about it?
Yeah, so I start most conversations with my couples telling them that the government sees you as one economic unit especially once you're married. So it's time to start thinking about yourselves in that way, which means that you are a team. So no matter what you're doing is like, okay, we're a team. So how would we do this as a team rather than as an individual? And the other piece is I always tell my couples like, don't even talk about money right now until we're in our session. Because in the beginning, before you have the language and before you actually know how to communicate around it, things can trigger it so quickly, and get you into an argument much quicker, right? So, what I help people to do is start to establish like what it feels like to have that compassion and to give each other the benefit of the doubt, and then having me as the middle person, the mediator, is really helpful to be able to come together and have those conversations a lot easier, and then they build up the muscle over time to actually be good at talking about their finances together. It's always so gratifying to me when like a year later or whatever, a couple come back to me and say, "Oh, we never fight about money anymore."
Oh, God, the dream, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's
So nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
If a couple is listening to this today and wanted to shift their money dynamic this week, what is one small step that they could take to do that?
Have that money date.
Have that money date.
Yeah. Yeah, make it something fun, make it something like joyous. We're recording this on the first of the month, and
That's
so
true.
yeah, so it's actually a great time to kind of go back and look at what happened last month, right? And then yes, plan for the future, right? Start to dream build. And then looking back on the last month is also not just like, okay, what did we spend our money on? But it's also like the fun things, right? Like my husband and I just went to Puerto Rico and that was really lovely, right? So it's like that we can look back on those moments as well, right? And say, yes, we got to do something fun. And, it's becoming more conscious of what you're doing day to day rather than just letting life take over. And then you never quite catch up to it, right? Yeah. So I like money dates in that way too, is like just being a little bit more conscious and more present
Hmm.
to the life that you're living
Yeah.
and the life that you're building.
Yeah. Yeah. Those dreams that you make together.
Yes.
Ah, juicy.
Yes. Yes.
What does a healthy financial partnership actually feel like in real
Mm,
life?
yes. Okay. So I am going to bring up again that my husband and I don't fight about money because I think it really creates the healthy, like it's an example of a healthy relationship and partnership around money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also like to kind of go back to, I know that you on a previous podcast talked about like the healthy masculine and the healthy feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is about that. This is about the healthy masculine and feminine, right? In order to have a healthy relationship, when it comes to money or anything else in your relationship, we've got to really understand that healthy dynamic, right? And then when I'm talking about healthy feminine and masculine, as you know, we're not talking about man or woman,
Right.
right? We're talking about in each of us, we have feminine and masculine traits, right, within
Mm-hmm.
us. And, a lot of times, even as women, we're taught to be in our masculine, right? We're taught to be like doers. Oh, you got to get this, and this done, right? Having a long to-do list and having the spreadsheets and
Yeah.
and budgeting and all the things, right? And yet that doesn't create the most healthy dynamic in a relationship, to be honest, right? The healthiest dynamic in a relationship is if I can relax into my feminine. In the past, before I met my husband, I think I was probably 90% in my masculine. Right. I was a doer. I was somebody who was like checking things off the list and getting stuff done. I was a TV producer, right, for 15 years. And as a TV producer, I feel like the job entails being in your masculine and constantly going. And what I realized is that kind of translated into my relationships where I was always the one taking care of my partner. And I don't think that created a healthy relationship. Whereas now in my relationship, in the last 15, 16 years that I've been with my husband, right? I have completely relaxed into my feminine, right? Into my healthy feminine. And when
Yeah.
I'm able to relax in my healthy feminine, I actually make more money. And the
Mm.
reason that I think women can make more money than men is because we naturally are good at receiving. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
in your healthy feminine, you are going to be good at receiving, right?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Rather than pushing things away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And saying, no, 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 I'll take care of it. I'll do everything.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Instead of that, it's like, come to me, right? And
Mm.
when you're in your healthy feminine, you also can create flow so much more
Mm-hmm.
easily. So that's financial flow as well as anything else, opportunities and creative flow and those kinds of things. We're also in our creativity more, right? The healthy
Mm-hmm.
feminine is in our creativity and in play.
Yeah.
All of these things really help that dynamic, right? My husband, being in his healthy masculine, is somebody who is great at holding space and being in a protective energy so that I don't have to worry about it. Right. Like, for example, even last year in Los Angeles, we had those fires, right? And we're very close. We were very close to the fires, and we had to have our emergency evacuation. In that moment, it can trigger a lot of stuff, right? And yet it didn't, because, again, we were in our healthy masculine and feminine roles, right? He was instantly like making quick decisions, because that's a healthy masculine trait, is to be very decisive, very quickly decisive, right? He was like, okay, I see the fires. They're really coming down fast. And so before we even got the emergency, yes, you have to mandatory evacuation, right? He already said, okay, I think we should call your parents to see if we can stay with them. And I'm going to start packing up the car, and, let's gather our things and go. And I very calmly called my mom and told her what was going on. And they were like, yes, come over, and started packing up. And we just did it. And then we got out of there, right? Without a lot of tension, without a lot of, yes, I was, fearful, because
Of
you could see
course.
the fires so
Yeah.
closely. And yet there was no triggering of anything, right? No triggering of like any fighting or anything, because we were in our roles in some ways, right? We were in that healthy role. And so being in that healthy role really helps us to dissipate that conflict. Yeah, I've never even really talked about it so much, right? Like this whole thing that, you and I are just talking about now, but I do understand it now so clearly, that when you're in a relationship with a partner and they are in their healthy masculine and feminine, right? Because he can have his healthy feminine as well, right? Because in his healthy feminine, it's like he is, he's very open and very vulnerable, and allowing himself to be seen, right? And allowing those emotions to come up when they come up, right? He doesn't suppress his emotions. And so that's also beautiful for me to witness, and then for me to be able to hold space for him during those moments too.
Mm.
Right.
That actually like made something shift in me too, as a single person looking for a partner who we can have a healthy relationship with money together. It's like, how can I release some of my masculine protection that I have over myself,
Yes.
right? That I have to protect myself, that I have to like just do everything myself
Exactly.
rather than receiving.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. Exactly.
yeah,
And it definitely takes the right partner, right? When you
yeah.
know it's the right partner, that's when it's so much easier. Because for me, yeah, like all my walls were up, especially because my parents fought all the time about money, about other things. I was always like, oh, I got to take care of it. And then also because I've known 3 women who stayed in those abusive relationships, I'm like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to take care of things. It became like I'm the breadwinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
fine. I mean, it's okay. But when it comes to like that previous relationship I told you about, where it, turned into financial infidelity, because I was so much more in the masculine and trying to take care of everything, that then it created a different dynamic in that relationship, right? Almost like a parent-child relationship.
And I feel like that would be also true if the roles were reversed
Yeah,
because it's just unbalanced.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
I know that things aren't linear. I understand that. But when
Mhm.
somebody starts changing their money patterns, what do you see that tends to shift first? How they act, how they feel, or how much they trust themselves?
Mm. This goes back to what we've been talking about, which is like starting with your own understanding of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and understanding your own story, bring more awareness about where your beliefs are coming from. And because if you don't know that for yourself, right, then you're also operating from this unconscious habit That's just running. And when you're running into this unconscious place, it's like, how can you make any change, or how can you grow, and how can you, create the healthy dynamic with your partner when it's that way, right? So first understanding that, then it's sitting down and understanding your partner's stories and having that compassion that we were talking about before too. And having that in the back of our minds, like really understanding where we're coming from, will help give each other the benefit of the doubt when stuff comes up, right? It's like, oh, when that stuff comes up, it's like, like, is it because that's from the way they grew up? Or is it because it's really, truly a personal thing? And so you're able to separate it a lot more.
If you had to leave us with one truth about love and money, what do you want us to remember?
Communicate, communicate, communicate.
Yeah. Have those money dates.
Yes, have those money dates and definitely communicate, and then start with love, right? If your intention is to always start with love, it's going to take you a lot farther, right? And the way you communicate, the things that come up, if you just started with the idea that I really love this person, right? Then you're going to soften into whatever it is that you need to bring up, right? And you are going to have that compassion for that other person and see them for who they truly are, rather than, somebody who is disagreeing with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, yeah, I love to think about that. And then to remember that you're a team, right?
I love
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a fun and expansive conversation. I feel so much more prepared for that relationship that I know is coming. Like, I feel like this was such a great preparation for like how to set myself up for success with a partner, not make it about the money, but about who we are and giving each other compassion for who we are and what we've been through. Ah, that's so expansive and wonderful. And knowing that like there's not a limitation. Like I could find your brother, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Absolutely.
And that feels that actually like gave me so much made me feel excited,
Yeah. Yeah,
as I
good.
go on this
Good.
journey. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and for
Thank
sharing
you.
your wisdom and knowledge with us. It's been a really fun experience. Katy, where can people find you if you'd like to be found?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on social media, and at my website at katychenmazarra.com. And I also have a couples guide to money for your listeners and
Yeah.
then once you grab that couples guide, you'll be on my list, and, I'll share with you a lot of different resources, that's coming up. And so, yeah. And if anybody wants to work with me, just, send me an email, through my website, or DM me, because I would love to, support anybody who's single and anybody who's in a couple. Because I love actually working with couples, especially in the beginning of their journey together. Like I have worked with a lot of couples before they get married or right when they get married, because they want to set themselves up for success. And I think it's so smart when people do that.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Katy, do you feel complete?
I do. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay! Thank you for being here.
So, the biggest takeaway for me is this. So much of what shows up in our relationships is rooted in childhood. I mean, newsflash! The way we saw money handled, the emotions around it, and whether we felt safe or not, all shape how we show up with a partner. So when conflict comes up, it's often not just about the present moment, it's about those earlier patterns playing out, something that we've heard over and over again on the show. And y'all, in our next episode, we're going to take this even deeper. Because once you start to build that internal safety, the next question becomes, how do you actually stay aligned with yourself in love? How do you show up in a relationship without losing who you are? In our next conversation with Stradea Srivasan, we will explore what it means to be in a relationship while still being fully anchored in your truth, your identity, and your own energetic alignment. I'm Julienne Irons, and this is Perspective Shifts for Healing with the Hanged Woman. If this episode resonated, please like, share, and follow so we can keep these conversations going. Until next time, hang in there, Seeker.